Sessions Cafe with your host, Keri D. Singleton.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sessions Cafe. I'm your host, Keri D. Singleton, and today we welcome the beautiful Miss Gail Allen to the show. How are you, Miss Gail?
I'm quite well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. Welcome to Sessions Cafe.
Honored to be here.
We're going to have a great conversation because I have a lot to learn about the world of real estate.
Okay.
But first, I wanted to ask you, so you were touring with the Shirelles?
Yes, I didn't know you knew that. Actually, yes, I did.
We got to talk about that. Yes. Wow.
Well, you know, I was also a jazz singer.
I didn't know that.
And one day I walked into my home and my mother said, "Your cousin Beverly's on the phone and she needs to speak with you." Uh-huh. And I called and I said, "Yeah, what is it? What would you like me to do?" And she said, "We just lost our member. Her name was Mickey.
Okay.
And she passed away on stage in Georgia at the Peachtree Plaza. Wow. And she needed a replacement right away. And I said, but I don't know how to dance. I don't know how to do routines." Mm-hmm. And she said, "We'll teach you." And I said, "Well, I don't think it's for me." And then she said, "We'll pay you this." And I said, "What's the next flight?"
Right. I know that's right. It's for you now.
Yes, for me right now.
Were you aware? I mean, the Shirelles was definitely a household name.
Yeah.
Were you aware that the member passed away? Were you aware of that?
No, I was coming in from, as a matter of fact, selling real estate, you know.
Okay.
And I walked in the door and my mother said, you've got to take her call. There's something going on, something happened. And we didn't know she wasn't even sick. We didn't know she was ill.
Okay. Wow.
But certainly it was an honor to work. No one could ever take her place, but it was an honor to work with the Shirelles I think I was with them for maybe 6-7 years.
So, I'm sorry, I know we're here to talk about your real estate career, but I got questions. Okay. So what was it like touring with the Shirelles and did you record any new material?
No, by that time they had stopped recording.
Okay, they were just touring.
And they were doing a lot of tours.
Okay.
And I toured with Dick Clark.
Wow.
I toured with I met Martha and the Vandellas, the Four Tops.
Amazing.
I met all of the great people that I grew up, loving. In terms of music. Mm-hmm. And one thing that got me back into real estate full time is I was coming back from touring with the Shirelles, and I was on a flight. Mm-hmm. And I said to my cousin, I said, "Is that Leslie Gore sitting in the next, it's my party and I'll cry if I want to," and Judy turned to cry. And she said, "Yeah, I said, gee, I said, you think she'll let me have her autograph?" She said, "I'm quite sure she will." And I started talking to Miss Leslie Gore, and she started talking about real estate.
Wow.
And we started talking about real estate, and she was involved with buying property and renovating with her brother. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that real estate really makes the world go round. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know more about it. And so I became involved in it to a point where I started teaching and holding seminars about real estate.
You're taking all of my job right now. Okay. Slow down.
I'll slow down.
We gotta talk. I still am a little fascinated because I'm a music fan.
Oh, okay.
I love jazz.
Okay.
I love R&B. So I'm a little fascinated. And we're gonna get into the real estate. We're gonna get into that.
Okay.
But we have to take a U-turn here. Touring with the Shirelles though, which preceded your career as a real estate agent. I mean, what were the places that where you performed that you?
Well, we would go to California, Canada. Mm-hmm. I went to Alaska, Hawaii, and it was really wonderful for a young black girl coming from Passaic, New Jersey. And which is a country town, mm-hmm. And I got to meet a lot of great people. I met Mary Wells of Motown. Wow. I met the Diamonds, and everyone. What I loved about rock and roll mm-hmm. is that they were very open and they were very appreciative of the careers that they had and still have.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
And they were very humble, mm-hmm. And they were very supportive of one another. I worked with the Coasters.
Wow, the legends.
Carl of the Coast, the Drifters. The great Charlie Thomas, who's gone on home.
Wow.
And it was just a wonderful experience.
Now I know you must have loved it, but like you said earlier, you made a decision to get into real estate. But was there any way that you could have done both? Or why did you decide to, if you decided to just give up singing to go 10 toes into real estate?
That's a theory. I think you never really give up singing.
Right.
As you never give up painting. I'm also a painter.
Yes, ma'am.
But
okay.
what you want to do in life is sometimes you want to collect yourself and be somewhat stable.
Okay.
I'm one person. I love traveling, but I don't like to stay away very long.
Right, okay.
I don't care for traveling, staying away 2, 3, 4 months at a time.
I can understand that. Yeah.
But
Vacations are fine, but to be on the road.
To be on the road, I'm away from my family.
Yeah.
And
living out of a suitcase.
Leaving out of a suitcase. And, some people love it. It's just not for me.
Right.
But do I love singing? I still sing jazz. And, of course, I still paint. Mm-hmm. And I think in life, you do what God puts in your hands.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you do.
Absolutely. So, real estate. Obviously, I've known many, many people over the past couple of years that have gotten into real estate that have done very well for themselves. I'm not very familiar with architecture.
Okay.
Love me some architecture. One of the many reasons I moved to New York 30 years ago was because I fell in love with the skyline, the skyscrapers. So I understand the art of real estate, but not the business of real estate. So again, we were talking about you being on that flight and getting involved in real estate. So let's double back to that. What conversation did you have on that flight that made you say, I want to do that?
Well, I said, what made you, Leslie Gore, I said, what made you become interested in real estate? How did that happen? She said, well, my brother started telling me about it. She said, and of course, you can't really sing forever.
Right.
Or you can't dance forever.
Right.
And I wanted to put my money into something, and at the same time, it can be very creative.
Right.
Like right about now, I have a group, we're interested in affordable housing.
Okay. Excellent.
And that is something that is needed.
Yes, ma'am.
And if there's anyone out there that's thinking about getting into construction, affordable housing is the way to go.
Okay.
Because people really
need
a decent, clean, affordable, respectable place to live.
Right. The real estate industry, the business of it.
Yes.
Talk to me about what that's like. I mean, I know the music business. I know the television business, obviously. But the business of real estate, I want those who may be watching that may be interested in getting into real estate to understand the highs, the lows, the pluses, the minuses, things of that nature. The sharks, if there are any,
they are.
of the real estate industry.
Yeah.
Give me a synopsis about what the world of the real estate industry, sharks included, are like.
Well, when you enter into the real estate business, the one thing that you know about yourself is that you are somewhat fearless. Okay. And
like a car salesman?
But you have laws.
Right.
And there are rules and regulations.
Okay.
And I'm quite sure car salesmen, they do now.
Right. Now.
But
right.
But you should have a mentor.
Okay.
Okay. Someone who tells you there's a facade. The facade is that there's a beautiful house on the market or building on the market for $5.2 million. Okay, and it's being presented by this realtor or this broker or brokerage firm.
Okay.
All right, and you're thinking to yourself, gee whiz, I'd like to get a listing like that. And your thinking would be false if you were to assume that you can just call a bunch of people from out of the white pages and ask, may I list your property? May I list you? No, that deal normally begins when someone looks at a property that may be condemned or perhaps the owner has reached his or her plateau in ownership, meaning that they've written off all the appreciation or depreciation that they can. They've depreciated the property as much as they can. They've gone up on the rents as much as they can, and there are no more. There's no more. There's no longer a benefit to holding on to the property, and they want to sell it. But still, they want to sell at a good profit.
Correct.
And so, a good realtor comes along, or investor comes along, and says, "I'll buy that building from you," and maybe they'll put down a down payment. Maybe they'll ask for a joint venture agreement, which sometimes is very little money out of your pocket, and you'll go into an agreement where that new person coming into the deal is going to take that property, renovate the properties, use capitalization to go up on the rents. If need be, improve the property, maybe build another level.
Add to the property.
A level, to add to the property to increase the value of the property, and then maybe in 2 or 3 years refinance the property and pay the original owner off, buy him out.
That's a lot. Sidebar: what region of the country are you licensed in?
I am licensed in New Jersey, and I've got a license pending in New York. But when it comes, and that's why I said as a realtor or investor, because as an investor, you are allowed to buy anywhere in the country.
Okay.
And, you know, I used to think with having a realtor's license or a broker's license, it can kind of like hold you back, but that's not true. And I'm saying this for the sake of the realtors that are out there that want to invest in other states. You may do so as an investor. You may buy property, and you can also wholesale that property. What do I mean by that?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
This is a good way of, this is a good income. This is a good way, a good business to get into. When you wholesale property, if you have, give you an example. If you have someone who wants to sell, let's take a house for $500,000, but you know that that house could be worth maybe as much as $600 or $575 or $550, but they need to sell right away. And you have investors that are interested in buying a home in that particular area. And what you do is you'll say to the seller, I will buy that house from you. You want $500? I'll buy it $500,000. I'm going to close 30 days from now. Okay? He says, okay, I don't care what you sell it for, what you do. I want to close in 30 days. In 30 days, you've got 30 days to find someone to buy it from you for how much? $550.
$550.
Maybe $575.
Okay. Wow.
If you can get 6, you get 6, right? And he's going to, but it has to be all cash.
Right. Okay.
Okay? And within 30 days, you close.
Wow.
And how much does the original seller get? $500. That's what he wanted, right? And how much are you getting? Whatever you managed to put on top.
After that. Well, wow.
That's wholesaling. And so we have seminars on that, you know, every other Saturday. And may I give out my website?
Well, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
And then we're going to come back. And then I have some other real interesting, historic, pressing questions that relate to real estate that I wanted to ask you about.
Absolutely. I answer as best I can.
We'll be right back. And we're back with our guest, who has so much knowledge, Miss Gail, of the real estate industry. I have to ask this question. Okay. Of course, historically, in this country, you know, real estate hasn't necessarily been open to everybody in a fair way. We definitely want to at least touch upon the nightmare that was the redlining era. Not sure whether you were into real estate at that time, but I'm sure that you can give us at least your own analogy of what that period was like.
Well, you know, it hasn't passed. It isn't quite in the past.
Oh.
There are laws against it, and I think the real estate industry, really goes out of its way to make sure and to protect people from redlining. I really do think that they're beginning to do a good job of that.
Okay, good.
But I remember my father, when he purchased his home, I asked him, I said, how did you buy this house, you know? And he said, well, I didn't really see it. He said at that time, they wanted us to buy only on a certain part of town.
Of course.
That's redlining.
Yeah.
He said, but I knew better. He said, and I wanted this section of town.
Right.
And what he did, his name was Brownie, Mr. Browns, they called him Brownie. And he had friends at his job, and they said, you know what? We're going to take you around, and we're going to show you the houses, and we're going to say that you are a plumber, and that's how he was able to run into the house and see where the kitchen was. And he came out, and he said, you know, I'll take that particular house in Hackensack, and that's the house I grew up in. But it was humiliating, you know. Thank God he had friends that understood that would help him. Oddly enough, she saw him going out the back door.
She,
the owner, the seller of the house, who happened to be, you know, German Caucasian woman. And when he went to the closing, she said to her attorney, from what I was told by my stepfather, that wait a minute, I just signed papers, and I see a black man in the hallway. He looks like the guy that ran out the house when I was pulling up from shopping.
Right.
Did I just sell my home to a black man? My stepfather told me for 1 year she tried to undo the sale.
oh my God.
Amazing.
That's just a period of American history that, I mean, there were so many discriminatory acts against people of color historically in this country. I think maybe that I dare say the redlining might be one of the ones that a lot of people are not aware of. It's the reason that there's so much segregation. It's the reason that, you know, in the 70s it was easy for there to be a thing called, the 60s I should say, in the 50s. It was so easy for there to be a thing called white flight because, you know, it wasn't that blacks couldn't necessarily afford to leave the inner city. They just couldn't, whether they had the money or not.
Right.
You know, and I just wanted to touch upon that topic, Ms.
But
Allen.
you know what's interesting, Keri, about that particular story, and I think it's indicative of what we call racism. She finally came back 2 years later, and she said, I want to see, he said he was in the back planting his roses. My father was a gardener. She rang the front door bell. He came, he knew it was her. She said, no, I just came to say, I love the way you're keeping the grounds. I love the flowers.
Wow.
But my point is, so what was the anger all about?
Well, because my assumption is that she thought that, you know, he would turn it into a Harlem. And the thing is that as much as the original owner of the property that your father bought might have been congratulating and your father's upkeep of the house, it was really kind of condescending. You know, I mean, wow, that's interesting. I had no idea when I asked you about redlining that you'd have a personal story that was so moving. But I also want to ask you some of the worst and best areas of the United States currently in 2026 for real estate careers. What would you say? When I say regions, I mean the Southeast, the Northeast, the Midwest, the West Coast. What parts of the country, in your opinion,
I would think the Baltimore area
is the worst?
Oh, worse. Oh,
worst
no.
and best.
Worse. I
So
think
the
Baltimore is
Baltimore
good right now.
region,
Maryland
okay.
is good.
Okay. Why would you say Baltimore was so much? I mean, I've visited the city of Baltimore many times, and next to Philadelphia, it's probably one of the cities that are most dilapidated in terms of the housing stock in the East Coast.
Well, you can build in Maryland.
Okay.
Okay. You can build. You can buy in Cumberland. And I have this theory too. You really want to invest in real estate? New York is fine. Bergen County, New Jersey is fine. But you want to go to those towns where there is employment,
Right.
where the demographics are varied or growing.
Okay.
And you can find property that's seemingly, comparatively speaking, inexpensive.
Maybe like a Detroit nowadays.
Absolutely.
Right.
You buy a 4-family, you buy an 8-family out there, and you know that it's a growing city.
Correct.
So eventually, those dilapidated housings that you see will be renovated.
Correct.
But you've gotten in for a lower price.
Right.
And in
Okay.
5, 6, 10 years, you have what? Appreciation. That's how you make money in real estate.
Okay,
You
gotcha.
buy low, you sell high.
Sell
it
high.
never changes. Can you buy low in Manhattan? I don't know.
Right. Probably not. So what would you say are, conversely, some of the worst areas in the United States to get into the real estate industry nowadays? Just in your opinion. I'm just curious.
The worst area, to me,
To you, yes.
whether it be high interest rates or low interest rates, tariffs or no tariffs, if you are in a state or municipality and that particular state or municipality is not willing to work with you in terms of your needing variances or a permit,
Okay.
all right, that's the state
Just stay away from.
to stay away from.
Okay.
Simple.
Okay. Interesting. Let's talk about the mortgage implosion of the 2007 and 2013 era and how that affected you as an agent.
It was a terrible time. You must remember before 2007, 2004, 5, 3, those were wonderful times in real estate. Property was just selling. Mortgages were easy to be approved for because all you had to do was just breathe on a glass and show that you were alive, and they would give you a commitment.
Wow.
And then what will they end up paying for that with the implosion?
Okay.
Because they were selling loans that people didn't really understand. So the negative amortization loan, rather known as negative AM, and that's when your interest rate is 1.1, but your fully indexed rate is 7%.
Okay.
Okay? You're paying 1.1 or 1.5% for a year. You were only supposed to pay for like maybe 5 months. But you're paying it for 3 years. Before you know it, you end up owing more than what you borrowed because you're not paying the fully indexed rate.
Right,
And that's
right.
accumulating, and now you've got compounded interest on the principal that you owe.
Okay.
So it was a tough time.
Yeah.
People were losing their property.
Yes, ma'am.
And the Obama administration came along and helped a lot of people. And that's why I really supported Vice President Kamala Harris, who at that time, along with Marcy Kaptur, were one of the very few people that came along in the industry and say, hey, listen, we've got to help these people. They're losing their homes because of the toxic loans that they were given.
Right. And is that what now, because I was also going to ask you about predatory lending.
That's predatory lending.
Okay.
When someone thinks that they have an interest rate of 3% 30-year fixed, but it's really 3% for 6 months, and then it's going to go up 2% 6 months later, and then a year later, another 2%, and then before you know it, you're sitting outside that house.
Right, exactly. You know what? That brilliantly goes into what I wanted to ask you about. Well, I wanted you to, if you could, in your own, from your experience, what advice would you give to first-time home buyers and investors? Because that's very important.
That's very important. First-time home buyers, just as you prepare to buy a car, you want to get your credit in order. You want to save up enough money for a down payment so that you'll be able to pay your $550 or $1,000 a month, whatever it is
Right.
that it's comfortable for you. You have to prepare to buy a home. So you look at your credit. All right. Look at your credit realistically.
Right.
Now, can you buy a house without credit? Yeah. If you have no credit whatsoever, you can use alternative credit.
Okay.
Okay. What is that?
What is alternative? Yeah.
T-Mobile.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Gas, PSE&G in New York is
Exactly.
Edison.
Yeah.
That's alternative credit.
Okay.
You can use that.
This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. The housing shortage across the United States. The numbers when we're talking about homelessness in this country are higher than they've ever been. Why is that, in layman's terms, from the mouth of a real estate agent? Why are we experiencing such a high level of houselessness?
It's due to profit. It's very obvious. Investors give monies to builders, and they want to see the highest return on their investment.
On their investment, of course, yeah.
And affordable housing just doesn't give that, can't compete.
Right.
And so what has to happen is what I think Governor Hochul is doing here in New York, is giving incentive to builders and investors to create and build, nice, affordable, aesthetically beautiful homes for people to live in.
Right.
I think home ownership is not a privilege, as some people say. I think it's a right.
It's a right, yes, ma'am. Yeah, and we have 1 minute, but you give me so much information. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
But before you go, we have 1 minute, and of course, I can't let you go without talking briefly about your book. So, Loan Modification and House Hacking for Profits Guide. Yeah. That's your book.
Yeah.
Can you give us a quick synopsis on your book and the website where people can get a copy?
Okay, so President Obama, was very, very smart in giving the Obama loan modification program. He gave his signature behind that, and that helped a lot of people save their homes.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
But after saving your home, what can you do now to get ahead of that mortgage?
Right.
You can do house hacking. House hacking simply is repurposing unused space in your home or on your land. So if you have an extra room, you can turn it into a bedroom. Obviously, if you have a porch, you can convert it. But if you have a swimming pool, as I had a neighbor that had a swimming pool and his wife wasn't able to work anymore, so he started renting out his swimming pool every summer to a club.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
House hacking, also in certain municipalities, they are now allowing homeowners to build accessory dwellings on the property or convert the garage, the existing garage, into a tiny house.
I know that's a big thing in California.
It's a big thing in Florida as well.
Florida, yeah.
But my point is that municipalities really do need taxes, okay? And homeowners really do need tax relief.
Okay.
So somewhere along the line, there has to be a compromise. And I think that compromise is allowing the homeowner or the investor to house hack.
So how can we get the book?
You can get the book by going to realtalkrealestatesmatters.com.
Okay.
All right. And you can order the book online. Okay. And it's called Loan Modifications and House Hacking for Profit.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It seems like time just flew by. I want to, really thank you for blessing me and my viewers with so much knowledge.
It's my pleasure.
And make sure you guys get that book, and we'll see you next week.
Sessions Cafe with your host, Keri D. Singleton.